Welcome everyone. This is our fifth expanding your consciousness through sharing stories. And this is December 8th. And this is the meetup group. So this week, I thought we'd focus on our connection with animals. And so I called it the pet connection because a lot of us have pets. And I thought we could share stories about that. But quite often too, especially when we're out in nature, we do connect with other animals. So we'll begin with that. And I always like to remind people, even people in this actual group, to keep your mind open. It is about expanding consciousness. And so sometimes we hear things and we go, oh, could that really happen? But as you expand your understanding of how this world works, you realize that a lot of things are beyond what we usually experience in our regular world. So my first story, and these are just three short stories related to animals. And my first one had to do with a cat named Pawnee, and she was a calico cat. This is just one that I got off the internet, which looks something like this. And I was probably in my mid-30s. I was going through some really difficult times, and I was very depressed. I'm in the bathroom in front of the mirror putting makeup on because I was going out. And Pawnee comes up the stairs, and she just sits there and looks at me. And when I turned to look at her, I could tell she was really concerned about me. So I looked at her, she's staring at me, and I just said, Pawnee, I'm okay. And she turned around and walked down the stairs. And that's when I started to realize, animals can pick up a lot of things that, we're not aware of, right? They're picking up certain feelings that we have, and we seem to be able to connect to them and see that they have certain feelings in return. So that's my first story with Pawnee. And I gave this the title of my four-legged watcher. My next story has to do with my cat, Louie. And Louie was a black cat. And I took him and another cat when I went overseas. I had them in Canada. I went overseas and I took them to Kuwait, and then they ended up in Egypt. And in 2012, Louie, was 18 years old. He was getting quite old, and he was getting quite sick. And so eventually he died. He died in the spring of 2012. So about a year or so later, I wake up in the middle of the night to go to the washroom, and the whole apartment, my apartment in Cairo, is in darkness. And the only light coming in is coming from outside, right? And as I walk to the bathroom, I look down and I see Louie looking up at me. But he had I used paint here, gold paint. He had little gold lines outlining him. And he didn't look 18. He looked about 6 months old. So I looked down at him. I go, Louie, like this. And I was about to bend down and pet him. I thought, oh, I'll switch the light on. Duh. He disappears. So anyway, that's when I thought, I was confused about it. I thought, whoa, that's spooky. But then I felt really happy to know that he was still around. Okay, so that's my second story. Then my third story, again, this happened in Egypt. a friend of mine, Susie, an Egyptian, she is quite the animal activist in Egypt. So she, takes in stray cats and a few dogs and that sort of stuff. And she also would care for foreigners' pets when they were traveling, that sort of thing. So anyways, but she had this little dog, a little Chihuahua, something like this little guy. And his name was Zorro. And Zorro, she said to me, look, I have to go away for a couple of days. Would you watch Zorro? I said, yeah, okay, it's no problem, right? So, then she comes to get him after a couple of days and she takes him home. And I'd say maybe several hours after she took him home, I'm standing in my living room and I just shut my eyes and I could see him in my third eye. It was like real time. I could see him in his home looking up at me, wagging his tail. And I said out loud, I said, Zorro, right? And he's wagging and all this, that sort of stuff. And I really felt he could see me and I could see him. And that is the only experience, because I always hear of people that can see things in their third eye. I'm sure, lady, you may be one of those people, right? But I've never had that experience since. And that was the first time I've had that experience. So I've never forgotten Zorro because of that whole thing of being able to see things at a different level. So there you go. That's 3 stories. Any,
Reminds me of, go ahead.
Pardon me?
Reminds me of my cat. Now that you said cat, about Muyan. But I knew one of them would show up, named Muyan, which means black in Italian. She was really, wherever I was, she was in the house. I had 2 businesses running at the same time. Upstairs, and the herbal healing, medicinal herbalist and healing center was in the bottom corner. And then we lived in the rest. But it was like, so in the people were taking orders and people were, I was supplying. So the cat always me. And then she died. I was a little curious about how she died. We found her dead. It's not like I know how she died. She was just kind of laying in the grass and she was dead. And that was sad, because it always was with me. So one day I'm upstairs in the office. I just got done with the healing center. I went to the office and I'm there working and talking to whoever. And I look at the left of me, there's this Jan used to like to go. And I look over and there's the silver cat. It's not black, just pure. And I looked over and it's like the cat's waiting for me to notice it. So I was like it's like, yeah, I'm gonna call you right back. I can't do both things. I looked at it, it was Muyan, but all silver, and you could see her, and she looked over at me, and I looked over at her, and I felt that it's okay, I'm fine, don't worry, I'm fine, I'm good. I was gonna get up, and when I went to, she just looked straight ahead and went right through the window, which was the screen. It was summer, so the screen, and the window was open. She just went right on the roof. But wow. She could have made that jump had she been alive. She did make. She went through the screen. She went out, and I stood up and I went over and looked over. Hello, Miana, you down there and stuff. But the peace, the feeling in that room completely changed and stayed all day. Every time I got her, it was like, look, I'm fine, I'm great. And she was like, I'm beautiful. That's never happened to me ever since. Yeah, I mean, just because you said, oh yeah, we're young. Yeah.
Well,
okay, I'm gonna go
I would like to respond to just something you said. It seems like both of you have been talking about cats a lot. And I'm actually highly allergic to cats, and I love them, but they can't be within 100 feet of me, or I'll have an asthma attack. But it was just a quick little comment. So I never really like believed in spirituality or anything like that. I didn't. I never cared about it. It wasn't a thing for me. But I think when I was like 10 or 11, that's when I started seeing auras or whatever. I didn't know what they were when I was young, and so and I've always been able to see them throughout the rest of, still to this day. Now I'm 31, and I remember always noticing that when I would look at the auras of cats, and I don't see them in my mind. I can't see anything in my mind, actually. I have aphantasia, but I just see the auras with my physical eyes, or that's how it appears to me. But when I look at cats, their auras, the aura to body ratio is so much wider than it is for humans. And their auras are so much more dense and thick. I don't know how to explain it, but it was always really interesting to me to notice that difference. Whereas humans, most of our auras are really tight around our heads, and unless the person is really healthy, it doesn't really shine that brightly. But yeah, I don't know, and I suspect that maybe cats have a more thick and dense and wider auric field, because maybe they reside more closely in the spiritual realm, and perhaps the aura is some sort of representation of the soul or soul energy. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. That just triggered for me when you were talking about cats, both of you.
Yeah.
That was
Any
great.
comment?
That was great.
What was that?
Yeah,
I
that's
guess
great.
it was a story. It turned into a story.
Yeah. Lady, have you noticed that? Like, have you?
Yeah, exactly. How do you pronounce your name?
It is Dionysus. It's my birth name too. It's not a made-up name. Dionysus.
Dionysus.
I just didn't want to say it incorrectly. Dionysus. Okay.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah,
I'm saying
I
it
agree.
incorrectly. Everyone does. I'm like, Mom, how do I pronounce this? I don't know. I don't remember.
Thanks a lot, Mom. Did you think you could see auras like you could when you were little?
Huh? What did you say?
Did you think when you were small and around 10 and you saw an aura, do you think other people could?
I don't know. I never really understood it. I just remember the very first time I was 10 or 11, I was in church, how cliche. And I hated being in church though, and I always wanted to leave. I was claustrophobic or whatever. And there was a lady praying, and then I just saw this really bright sort of like yellow light around her head, and I felt like she was praying for her son, and who was involved in gang activity or something. I don't know why I felt that, and I don't know why I saw this light around her head, but I was like, Mom, can you see that light around her head? I was so excited, and then, as usual, my mom got really mad at me, and told me to be quiet. And then I remember in that moment thinking, like, that's what psychic is, seeing things other people can't see. And so,
Yes.
but I didn't pay too much attention to it. I just always saw them. So after that.
Okay. All right.
That's great.
Does
Yeah,
anyone-
the cat thing is, though, honestly, if you dog and cat, I always know the cat, I don't know, it's not that the cat's more there, but the ethers around the cat get thicker faster. They're really boundless. They're boundless. When you say cat has 9 lives, there's more than that. So they have a lot of fearlessness where they're always thicker.
That makes sense. Thank you. I never really understand auras. I don't get it, I don't understand it very much. I just know that, I just notice what I notice, and that's it. I don't stretch to try and create some elaborate spiritual philosophy about it, But it's nice to hear this greater explanation. Thank you.
Sure. I want to hear a story.
Okay. Dave, you had a story that you want to share.
Sure. Well, this was one of the experiences I had when I was up in the Arctic, and I was running a fishing lodge up there, and part of my daily routine was I was up at about 5 every morning, and I would get, breakfast started, cooking food, coffee started. Well, actually, before I could do that, I had to walk up to the generator station. There was a big diesel generator that supplied the whole camp with electricity. And it was about, at least 100 yards from the main camp. So I had to go up every morning to start it up. So I'd start from the main hall, the kitchen, and walk outside about 100 yards. Anyway, this Arctic hare started showing up every morning. I'd come out of the main lodge and there's this Arctic hare standing there looking at me. Oh, good morning, how are you? And it would accompany me up to the generator and then come back with me, would walk right beside me up and back and forth. And then I would say, see you later, see you tomorrow, right? He would show up every morning. And the funny thing is that he started, I'd greet him in the morning and he would do a trick for me. The first time he started doing backflips and multiple backflips, and he would be like jump up in the air and do a backflip and
Oh my
land in the
gosh.
same spot, right? Exactly the same spot. And it would just keep doing it. And I had to just shake my head. Am I seeing this? Because I was working sometimes 20 hours a day and I was, exhausted. And I was wondering if I was hallucinating. So I just, shake my head, rub my eyes and go, okay. And he would do it again. And then I'd say, okay, so this is happening. And I'd have to go start the generator, but he would walk with me all the way up and walk. And I assume it was a he, I don't know. I don't know how to tell the gender of a Arctic hare. But so this happened every morning. And he would do a different trick every morning. And sometimes he'd do something that just, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The one that especially I found incredible was he started spinning, like running in a circle, but it was such a tight, small circle. It was like, how can he do that at such a great speed? Because he would just really become a blur. And again, it was just like, rub my eyes, is this happening? And no, yeah, it's like something out of a cartoon, And so I got used to it. It was just like, okay, let's see what you're gonna do today, And he would come up with something different every day. And so, I mean, that was, quite an experience all on its own. There's many more that I don't want to, that I'm going to leave that story off right there.
What happened to him? What happened to the rabbit?
Well, there was
Oh,
a
no.
dog in camp, and this dog was a real asshole. This dog was so disobedient, and nobody could do much with this dog. He was really spoiled. And he didn't listen. He just did whatever he wanted to do. He ran all over the camp all the time, causing problems. Anyway, one morning the rabbit wasn't there, and later on that evening, I saw a pile of rabbit fur, and the dog. I know, and the dog had killed and eaten my little friend. And I said, well, that's it's a circle of life, I guess. But the very, very, thanks, Dionysus. But the funny thing is, and I come across this in other Arctic lore, mystical or mythology. The dog ate the rabbit, but the dog was the best behaved dog after that. His personality completely changed. It was like, who is this dog, right? He was completely different. His whole personality changed. Like he wasn't focused on his own agenda anymore. He was attentive to the humans. He he listened. You could tell him to do anything he did. He was super obedient. So something happened there. It was quite magical. And so that's that little part of the story of Up in the Arctic.
Maybe he was really embarrassed by what he did.
Maybe, or you
It's
know,
just his way to say, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
there are a lot of people that believe what we consume affects us emotionally too, or our behavior, right? You know, if an animal's under stress when it's killed, that sort of stuff, right?
Mhm.
So you also think with this rabbit that had such a silliness about it, right? A lightness about it. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Well,
Or spirit, a different spirit. Yeah.
saw a movie about it was called Atanarjuak, and it translates, I think, to fast runner. Anyway, there was one little episode in that movie where there was a really nasty tribal chief up, among the Inuit, and one of the shaman put a spell on a rabbit, and this nasty tribal leader, he ate the rabbit, and that completely changed him. He was a wonderful person after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know.
So
He
is
has
the,
a spell to be a wonderful person.
Yes.
is the moral of these stories that we should eat rabbits?
He was a
Nice.
spell.
Eat nice rabbits.
Nice rabbits, yeah.
I'm going to tell my rabbit story now.
Oh, okay,
Oh.
good.
I had, some time ago, I had a little daughter who was disadvantaged. So she, as a result of that, she wasn't allowed, she was like in prison at home. So every night I'd come home from work, and after dinner, we'd go for a walk somewhere. So this time we went for a walk in a field, and sure enough, there was a rabbit, a little cottontail. And I said, "Oh, look, Jamie, we'll be real quiet. We're gonna go and sit on this log, and we'll watch and see what happens. See what, we don't want to scare them." So I go over and sit on the log. Well, little Miss Attention Deficit Disorder, etc., decides she's gonna go and pick the rabbit up. So she sneaks up real quiet, reached down. She really got up right close to it. She reached down and actually picked the rabbit up and started to pet it. So what would happen next? There's rabbit number 2 comes hippity hopping along. So she puts down rabbit number 1 and then went tiptoeing over toward rabbit number 2, where that one had stopped. And then the spell broke and both the rabbits went whipping off, and that was the end of the story. So, but the meaningful part for me is not so much the rabbit, it's for little Jamie. She was 6 years old. She had every kind of weird mental problem you could imagine, or at least that I could imagine at that time. But she had a gift, and she still has this gift now, of being able to communicate with animals in a kind, loving way. So whenever I think of her, I remind her of her gift,
Yeah.
and that she has that. But she's, when we adopted children are very tough because they have such short histories, but such tragic history. They learned all the wrong things about life. So when I remind her of how wonderful she is, it just bounces off her, and she continues to think what she's always thought. But anyway, that's my rabbit story.
Yeah, I think animals can bring out sometimes they can bring out the best in a person, right?
Yeah, well, they
And-
sure did with Jamie.
It can be quite surprising, actually.
Yeah.
And also we do share a lot with animals and plants and just nature. Like we share DNA. So, and at some point, because if you think about it, when like all the evolution and everything, like we all like came from that one cell. So I also feel like if we are like really connected with our source and just the nature, like people who are more connected, they do have that better connection with animals and plants. And so maybe your daughter was just one of them. So she had like better connection with just nature and animals.
That's probably true. And what I'd like to explore when we're finished with our animal stories is that thing that you mentioned there where we have a connection, but I would like to talk about the nature of the connection. What is it? You know, what's happening? And is it something to do with aura? Is it something to do with communicate? What is it? And let's come back to that, because it's a big, for me, this is where these beautiful stories on animals, it's where they lead, because we're having pretty interesting experiences with completely different species. And how does that work? How can we communicate? Anyway, so I have
Oh, I have,
several other stories, but I've got a cat story that is boring compared to the ones you had, but I'll tell it really quickly. My father.
Okay, and then I think we'll have Diane Nice.
Dennis.
yes.
Okay. Did you want to
Yes.
comment though to what Cody said?
Not yet. I'll wait till later.
Okay.
And then I was just gonna ask you, I didn't realize, was today specifically for sharing stories about animals?
Say that again.
Was today's event, I should have read the description, I'm sorry I didn't, but was today's event specifically about describing our sort of spiritual animal experiences?
Yeah, usually we keep it
Oh.
focused on our relationship with others, but this week I thought I'd pick a theme about our relationship with animals, because a lot of people have had unusual experiences related to their pets or, you know, nature.
Fun.
We don't do it every week.
Okay,
It's
good.
just this week. Yeah,
Yes.
just this week.
No, this is fun. Okay, maybe after Cody, I have one strange animal experience to share.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So Cody,
Okay, I got 5 more, so
just one.
everybody had
How's
better
that?
go before me. But my cat stories, we get the cats done first. My father had just died, and I was living in the home where I grew up. And like we're talking about 3 days later or 4 days later. And my girlfriend was sitting on the front porch, and she says, "Oh, Ken, come quick, come quick." So I go out, and there's a cat. So it was a street cat, and it was, you know, and I said, "Oh, look at you." And, you know, we don't feed street cats because then they become our pets. So I didn't want any pets, but it's a beautiful little calico cat. So I got her a little box with towels and stuff and a little thing of water. And she wasn't interested, and she carried on with her journey down the street. So the next day, my girlfriend is sitting out on the front porch again, and she yells, Kevin, look at this, look at this. So out I go again. She had brought a little newborn kitten and plunked it at Betty's feet. and I thought, oh my God, look at this. So we put the little kitten in the box that was there, and I said to the cat, okay, go and get the others, go get the others. Because of course cats have 4 babies. They don't just have 1 baby. There was no other babies. That cat didn't go back and get any more babies. But what she did was she picked up her little baby out of the little place where I put it. And there was a tear in the screen in the front of the house. And she jumped in, and I think she adopted me. She decided I was going to be the father of her children. And so I was. It was the coolest thing. So there was, I mean, it's a long, boring story after that. But I thought how assertive this beautiful cat was looking after her baby. I don't know where the rest of them went to. But I thought, oh, it's so interesting how different species, cats and humans, can get along without even, how did she know her baby was safe with us?
Yeah.
How was it? Wow, so I was fascinated by that. Anyway, I'm done now. That's my second story.
Okay.
It was a great story.
Was.
Okay, so my strange animal experience, I usually don't have any because I am from New York City and I don't like being in the wilderness. But so,
Oh, no.
but can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so, but this story actually took place it's strange, in two different events. So my grandmother, I loved her. She lives in Philadelphia, and I went to go visit her and help her, after finding out that she was diagnosed with something similar to Alzheimer's, cerebral vascular deficiency or something of the sort. And so, and this was before she passed on, and she told me, well, what was interesting was anytime I came around, she had a perfect memory, back to normal. Her first line was normal and so on. But we had a good bond. And so she told me one day, she was like, she used my nickname, and she said, I know you're going to think I'm crazy or whatever, but I opened the front door when you weren't here, and I looked out, and this little pink bird, hopped towards me, and it started chirping at me, and it was as if it was telling me that it's my time to go to heaven. That was the feeling, I guess, she got, or the vibe she got from seeing this pink bird. And I mean, I trust my grandma, and I know, I don't know if any of you have ever interacted with someone with Alzheimer's, but there's a certain moments of lucidity that you become aware of, like, okay, they're back, they're here. She was very here when she told me about seeing this pink bird. And so I was like, okay, well, that's cool. But also you're telling me that you're about to pass on to heaven. That's sad, and so on. And so, maybe about after she did actually pass on, very shortly after, and I attended her funeral. I went back to here. I travel everywhere. I'm back in Texas now, and I remember going down the end of my block here in Texas, and seeing a pink bird, and it flew down on the ground, and it just kind of hopped towards me, and then it flew away. And I remember being so just, I don't know how to explain, like, I just in awe, and like, it's still kind of unbelievable now that I'm sharing this with y'all to remember. But I was like, in that moment, I remember thinking, oh my God, my grandma probably really saw a pink bird. Like, what are the odds of that? And it was just an amazing experience. Yeah, it was just, I still can't explain it. It's never happened again. And actually, I've never seen a little pink bird other than a flamingo like that ever again in my life. So it's really, really amazing.
Yeah.
I have a story, if I may.
Sure. Sarah?
Yeah. Hi. So
Hi.
basically, hi. So
Hi.
basically, I'm a dog lover. Basically, I'm an animal lover, but I love dogs. So my father's elder brother, my uncle, had 3 sons, and one son had passed away 20 years ago in the plane crash. So there was a lot of gloomy environment, and everybody was sad. So my cousin brother, he brought a Pomeranian dog, a puppy, and that puppy became very good friend of me. And then, I got a special bond with that Pomeranian, and then it was a beautiful relation we had, like, for 9 years, 9.5 years. And then one day, I don't know what made me tell my mother that I just happened to tell her, like, maybe mom, that God gave the dog, its name was Mowgli, as return gift, because our cousin brother had been taken away from us. And now the second brother, like, his younger brother recently had gotten married and his wife was pregnant. So I just happened to tell her, maybe, once the new baby comes, then God will take away this Pomeranian because his job is done. So my mother said, no, you should not be speaking all these things, and that's not the right way. They will have both. So I was like, okay, but I don't know, somewhere something I was feeling like, because the Pomeranian was almost like 9.5 years old and was not doing well. So somewhere sixth sense was telling me something. And then I forgot about it. And then my cousin's wife, after 9 months, she delivered a baby boy, and we were all in the hospital to see the boy. And when we were there in the hospital, we happened to get the news that the Mowgli, the Pomeranian dog, it was at home actually, because it was not feeling well all these days. We didn't take the dog to hospital actually. We got to know, like, one of the house helper called us and told that Mowgli was just lying, coiled around, and it was not moving. Basically, it had passed away. So this was something very beautiful, at the same time heart-touching, like how it entered in our lives when it was gloomy period. We were all mourning for the loss of our brother. After 9 years, when a new baby was born, the same day it had left, like, that my job is done. And
Yeah,
I just wanted to share that. It was very beautiful.
Oh.
And
yeah. You do wonder, right? They're assigned a certain role, right? And coming here, and then once it's done, that's it, right? So.
And to answer to Cody, like, like how are we connected? I'm not sure if anybody knows about Hinduism. In Hinduism, it's like, a soul never dies. So they say that to get a human form, the soul has to go through multiple forms of these species. And one of these is like, we all evolved birth after birth. So we all go through that cycle of, being an animal. And so for us, it's like, maybe my next birth is I may be a cat or I may be a lizard. So it's just the change of the body, but the soul is the same.
Mm.
So that is why that connection we feel so close, of course, scientifically too, but this is what Hinduism says. So just wanted to let you know.
Any comments?
I wouldn't mind coming back as a cat.
Um,